New identity I was given when I came to the state 12 years ago. I didn't really feel like I'm owning this identity until one day when I was in a Chinese restaurant. A server provided me a set of, some of you might understanding why that's such a big deal. Because normally if you are Asian walking into a Chinese restaurant, they automatically give you chopstick and hot tea. And if you are European American walking into a Chinese restaurant, they automatically give you silverware and ice water. And that was the moment I feel incredible insult, as a sense. But at the same time, I thought, oh shit, I blend in. I'm part of this American culture. And here comes Ling, her story began. Now, I got to say that I'm proud to say Ling is the first generation's immigrants from Hong Kong. And she's here to tell you so much more than just that one story you have been heard. She find her artistic freedom and become more expressive and bold and loud. She shout for things she is. Nothing like clay can recur her movement, her intuition, and her stream of consciousness. It responds to her gestural expressions. And the work you guys are looking at are the work when I had that feeling, and it's beginning to evolve with my work with more color, and the form have become more and more abstract. Now Ling wants to know how much more she can do to pump us the joy of freedom into her elaborations interacting with ceramics. And this instant, direct feed of emotion, what she can do to express. In this work you guys are looking at from Toshiko Takiesu, it's one of the female Japanese-American potter that I'm very looking to her work, especially her expression of glaze into the surface. It has such a strong presence to the work itself. And that's exactly the gesture express I wanted to present on my work. I must act fast and intuitively to paint on the surface of the clay. The glaze run with gravity, dripping the moment it touched the hot clay surface. Sizzling sound erupt, and a haze of steam surround the piece until the glaze dry and stay. I can only direct the flow of glaze when the piece is hot. I then fire the form again and again. In those firing, my glaze itself works with heat inside the kiln, and all my predetermined locations are no longer valid. And that is the process of my work. I tentatively to repeat firing them again and again and again. The long suppressed anger and cultural expression from Sherry combust into Ling's ceramics form and become their playground for glaze. Literally, Ling's become a theater director, a set designer, and glaze are her actors, where the movement of the material is her medium. And Ling has a drive, a lust, and a greed for color. And one of the things a lot of people ask me, where did those forms come from? What is your thought process? Have you ever made any sketches? And one of the things that I always love to do is to premeditate of things and feeling. And when I think about form, I'm not necessarily having them as my first thing to be thought of, but really, glaze is what I find it fascinating. I see my glaze as an actor, and I have a pre-written script for those actors to be added. And depend Depending on what kind of action those glaze can do, I designed the stage where the form of the ceramics came from. Allow them to drip, to crawl, to crack, or even to fall. Even though we look at ceramics as the mediums of permanency and the weights of immobility, now in Link's desire, her desire is to bring this quality of lilac into the media through using the pop color, turning her gesture and action into a celebration of event of making. Now, Link doesn't hold back some of the shame-suppressed memory from Sherry as a beauty school dropout. And here's where Sherry's dream come merging into Link's work. You can see one of the things that I find fascinating with hair is that hair has that sense of absence from the body, which was oddly to reminding a person. And I can see that the string sensation has an uncanny value of a hair fascinating me to putting juxtaposed with my identity as Sherry. It's familiar yet unfamiliar. Another way to seeing that is think about hair that fell out and left on the bathroom tiles. Your first instinct about that hair, it's immediately turned into objects that you wanted to reject. You think it's gross, but remember when it's still attaching into your head, it is an object to be polished, to be brushed, to be cared. But what happened when it fell out from a body? And that's come to me where I begin to interest in inserting the hair into ceramics, as if I'm shifting, giving hair a new identity. And at the same time, how adjustable with the identity that I had as a Sherry, where that identity come from 13 years ago when I'm still in Hong Kong. And when I thought about Sherry, it's always found it unfamiliar, but I know her. But I don't know her very well. And that sense of concept of shifting the presence of Sherry, and I feel like when I'm putting hair into my ceramics work, I'm shifting that presence of Sherry and further through into the expression of Ling. Now Sherry speaks her heart through Cantonese, but Ling expressing in the language of arts where she only learned it through English. Because of seeing those two together, everything become abstract, where no sound of language to be heard, but the action of expression collides together. Now suddenly, the name game isn't important anymore. I am who I am. I neglect all the label I was given, like I neglect the shape and the form, the common use of the materials. I make odd sentence with random invented words. You can call those broken pot, not ceramics, just like my broken English. But to me, they're my perfect language. I think in English. I feel in Cantonese. I know so much more of feeling are untranslatable to my thought. With the recent incidents that happened in Asia, the massive upheaval at my hometown Hong Kong, then the outbreak of coronavirus that brought in xenophobia toward Asians, I feel the urge to reconstruct my identity, in particular to the question of where you from become eerie, uncomfortable, and invalid. But that got me thinking. I think that we should start to think about ourselves. It's not just a path of history where we're from, but also the culture we continue to value and practice. I begin to experience this new form of clay, thinking about how I can shifting those materials. And one of the things that I realized when I began to making those forms you're looking at, I was in a stage of feeling unstable and seeking for comfort. And it comes to my mind that when I start building this two sculpture, it reflects to images of godness that my mom prayed to it every morning when I'm back in home in Hong Kong. And that's one thing that I began to really fear. I fear for what Sherry, her memories of Hong Kong, will no longer have a proof in the present culture. I fear for Ling, the ongoing battle of stigma she works hard to break every day will eventually devour her. And in this years of July, I made a solo exhibition with Method Gallery. And the work that was in that gallery as the solo exhibitions were actually to Ling. And I want to share a quick video with you guys. So the work that you just saw was made during last month in July at Method Gallery. And those are the work, a conclusion were basically my feeling of longing for home and also those memories that I had about Hong Kong. And I just wanted to use my ability to preserve those good memories that I have about Hong Kong. And I want to quickly just talk about few works that was from the exhibitions and related to my feeling about belonging. And that's also why the title of the show is called Apostrophe S, of who is this to be belong, who is the objects to be perceived, is an identity could be possesses. And the work that I'm continuously exploring is things that will shift with the environment. And as a result, there's some experimenting work that I'm working on, implements plants and fire arrangement into my sculpture. And it's the solo exhibition Apostrophe S that you guys saw right just now in the video. It shows a few pieces of work that I found it resonate with me and my memory of Hong Kong quite very much. The first one is the neon she remembered. And it's a totem form of the 3 pieces of ceramics, including the use of neon lights which was something that I always miss during my time at Hong Kong, which is also something every time when I close my eye, I'm thinking about home. It's always that imagery of an airplane coming down, landing in the Hong Kong International Airport. But the first glimpse you see is the vivid light scenes of Hong Kong with all neon light. As we all know that neon light is slowly replacing by LED light. As part, I feel the urge to learn this medium as my way to record those feeling into those light where I know the shelf life of neon is only lasts for 17 years. And this picture is as ironic as it is, since COVID has hit all of us life, most of our thing exists in the screen. And that's another thing that I keep thinking, what more we can do as an artist. And here I'm sharing a work from a Hong Kong artist called Little Thunder. And her work is always exists with Hong Kong culture, particular things that it's have been slowly dying culture, especially those handmade beautiful signs you will see on the street. Sign is another installation work that I did during my solo exhibition at Method Gallery. It's a structure of 3 panels and 4 neon lights onto the structures. And you can see at the back, a lot of them are inspired by how street lights were being hung in Hong Kong. And especially the structure that you see over here where my cursor was showing, that's a structure that lots of neon light were being hung with this crossbar support. Again, this work is a photographer from Elaine Lee, which is a colleague of mine, acquaintance of mine in undergrad, where we both studied visual communication design in Chicago. And you can see with her work, those are the crossbar imagery that I found. And again, here, each of the little piece of circle that you see is actually indicating with Chinese calligraphy. Or when I was young, I studied Chinese calligraphy during the summertime at the summer school. All I remember is almost 7 to 5 o'clock every day. I practice with that one stroke to understanding how that one stroke can have harmony with another stroke exist in the same space. It got me another memories of what Sherry have of Hong Kong is that she remember Hong Kong's under the language of traditional Chinese. But slowly, lots of the language have been implemented with the simplified Chinese. Sometimes I wonder how much I could use to it from seeing this language that I used to grow up with and slowly changing. When I'm making this piece of work, I thought about Chinese calligraphy, how whenever we practice writing a word, it's always come in a grip system of a cube. And again, thinking about how language of traditional Chinese slowly turning into simplify. And I started to rethink, how does all the stroke being, how can we reconfigure and find harmony again in this chaotic world? Again, each little piece that's sticking out from the sphere are representations of a deconstructed stroke from the characters. So as a person, I'm sharing my role as an artist to preserve Sherry cultures in a new form of vessel. In the present, I'm sharing my role as an ancestor to find a place for Ling to speak and stand. In the present, I'm seeking for identity that can constant shift and change with an environment. In the present, I'm seeking for identity that no longer restricted by the past, but defined by my intention. We are entering into a space where things are impermanent. We don't know what is holding us in the future, and everything can change in any moment. And which was quite opposite of what ceramics has been labeled. But that's the new language I'm determined to create and tell the world who is Sherry. And thank you guys very much again to showing up at this artist talk.
Wow.